Well, hello, hotties, and welcome to the hotel room edition of the Business Fondle podcast. I want to say I feel so good about this because my original vision for the podcast, actually, my original vision for the podcast was me wanting to do interviews with people in a hot tub. I told this guy who was like a music producer, like sound engineer, and he was like, we can't do that with the bubbles. I'm like, but how hot would it be? And then off the back of that, I was like, I feel like we could do a hot little interview series called In Bed with the Babe. And I can be in hotel rooms around the world with my guest in luxury pajamas, talking all things business and entrepreneurship. And it feels wild that this just happened today. And why I say this is because it's really interesting that a lot of the time we have it's almost like we have this desire of where we want to be and where we want our business to be. It's like if you think about your future self, how it feels so far away. Like you may be able to like imagine her, but or like you may be able to imagine them, but it still feels like there is like it's almost like a big valley between you right now and then that person. And it's so interesting that I was like, I hadn't actually intended to record any podcast episode while I was here. I was like, let me just do some business planning for this year. And I thought, I need to do a Monday mindset. I don't want to have to go into work this weekend. So let me just come in here and I'll just record some episodes. And I put on a dress and I was like, no, I feel a bit uncomfortable about this. I'm like, let me just put on my nightie. I'll put on my little robe. I'll swivel the cuck chair around. And then there's this beautiful light in the room and I've kind of like moved that around to be a spotlight. And it's so interesting that a vision that I had for myself, which I felt like was so far in the future, it just happened to be my today. And, if you've followed my work for a while, you know how big I am on making these incremental shifts within your business and within yourself and how you need to continually upgrade your identity and how it will feel like that when you do get to this point of your future self, it's almost like that you have arrived. Do you know what I mean? It's like the final little puzzle piece goes in and it's never like that we are doing this like 180 where we're becoming a completely different person. It's like the smallest thing happens or we have this like little moment of realization. And I had that today. I took myself away for a little spontaneous staycation. I booked it before I had a session with a brand new client. There was like 5 minutes before our session. And I was thinking about this whole week. I'm like, I want to go away. I feel like I just need to get away from my life and I need to get clarity on myself and my business. I booked my little staycation. And it's so interesting how I feel the reason that I booked it, even though I came to work, I was like, I love how for me, it's kind of this feeling of everything basically coming together. It was a tremendous feeling. And it's funny, I had actually started to record this with the intention to record another episode. And now that I'm talking, I feel like that there is a few things I want to say and really, I guess, telling you around, who I plan to become in the next 12 months, maybe giving you some inspiration on how you can do things differently in your business, or maybe even a permission slip if you still feel like that there is part of you that is wanting to hold yourself back. I feel it is really interesting now to have conversations around like business growth, success, making money. We're in a recession, we have cost of living, all of this stuff is happening. And I feel like that whenever you declare that you want more, it's really interesting that people are like, but why aren't you happy? And I have made a shift where instead of feeling like that I need to kind of like declare things before I do them, it's more so now around like just confirming arrivals. Like I'm never going to go out and say, here is what I'm doing. For me now, and I think this next stage of business growth, it's really around me moving in silence, doing all of the things I want to do and cultivating, I guess, the self-trust within myself. So, a lot of the advice that I give on here, the reason you're like, oh my gosh, when you talk about this, I feel really called out. The reason you feel called out is because I have lived exactly where you have been. Everything that we talk about, everything I teach on, I have gone through. And this is why, like, I always tell you all, I'm like, you're doing such a good job because, the reason who I have to compare this with is my little amateur, entrepreneurial, immature entrepreneur self, right? And something that I used to do was I was really big on telling everyone what I wanted to do. I would convince myself that this was going to be this was my strategy, right? This is what I am going to do. And it's really interesting that I felt like that when that happened, if some little hurdles happened, people like, how are you going with this thing? How are you going with this thing? Or they would continually kind of like putting their 2 cents on my process. Or, if I was having like a hard day, if the thing that I wanted to do wasn't eventuating, they would say things like, oh yeah, it's like the market. Everything's really shit right now. So much of what I do now is really around like moving in silence, which I guess in a way, because I'm going to be telling you some of the behind the scenes of what I'm going to be doing this year. But, I think that's a huge lesson for all of us, where it's like move in silence and just confirm your arrival, because I don't think you realize the amount of people, and it's so unfortunate, that will put their own projections onto you and everything that you do in business. And you never want to kind of have that be the reason of things holding you back. So another thing that I am doing and focusing on this year is I am focusing on the expensive things in my business. Now, this came up in a coaching call this week where we were talking about expensive stuff. And I said, I don't have a negative connotation of expensive. So when I say expensive, I don't see that as like a bad thing. It's really interesting that people are like, oh no, but it's good value. And I'm like, yeah, but I just talk about it as like it's a high cost thing. I don't see it as like anything negative. But it's really interesting that yesterday when I checked into my hotel room, I haven't actually planned out what I'm doing this financial year. Don't tell anyone. I was like, before I do this, let me actually just track and see how the first 6 months of this year were. Now, in case you didn't know, I ended up last year having a period where I didn't really do anything for 3 months. We had Give Good Email going. I had some small little sales tick along, but all of the clients that I had in Business Bang finished up. They were either pregnant or they were moving overseas. There was just so many big changes. And I found myself without any clients for 3 months. And I was really lucky that I'd obviously structured my business in a way where I did not anticipate this happening, but I could still pay myself. I could still pay all my bills. And I'm pretty sure that I had like, I'm going to say 3 to 4 months worth of living expenses and bills I had about 3 to 4 months of money in the bank to cover wages and to cover business expenses that I knew that I was going to be fine. But this year when it started, I told myself that I wanted this to be really different. I had a big January, we dipped down a bit after that, and then it's kind of gone up and then down and then up and then down. But for the most part, the lowest month still covers my wage and my expenses, which I'm a huge fan of. So what you want to make sure in business is that your lowest months that you have can still keep the business going, that you still pay your wage, you still have cash left over, and that you still have money in the bank for your bills, okay? We want to get to that point where the low months can still maintain everything, and then our high months, our beautiful big cash months, become like the cream on top or the cherry on top. I don't even know what the saying is. What is it? So where was I going with this? Okay. So what really changed this year? And it was really interesting to find out that I have in 6 months, I basically managed to do a year's worth of what I did before in 6 months. And I would say even now I'm focusing less on working, less on delivery because I have the podcast. So I'm doing a lot more on content. And it was so wonderful to kind of see business decisions reflect in my profit and loss, right? Where I looked at the fact that I'd started the year, I'd come off the back of this quiet period. I'd started the year, I'd really made the intention that I was going to focus on 2 core offerings, well, really 3. I was going to focus on Business Bang, Give Good Email, and then consulting work and bigger consulting jobs, and how that has delivered a whole year's worth of revenue within a 6-month period, right? Which is fantastic. And the cool thing is now I have all of this data to take within the next 12 months. So what I'm going to do is really continue to focus on those things. The big things in my business are Business Bang, because that obviously delivers the most transformation to the client, the most transformation to me. I love working with clients in a longer relationship and a closer proximity because I know so much about their business as well. We've got Give Good Email as well, because this is my more so like passive higher end offering. It goes deep and it does something very well, which is email marketing and marketing automation. I've got the consulting, and then I've got the podcast as well. And when I look at the core focuses of my business in the next 12 months, this is really what I'm going to be focusing on, are those things. So that feels really good. Now, I have alluded to in a couple of different podcasts that I am actually starting a consulting arm. Throughout my business, I've always had to deal with feedback of people being like, professional babe, like, do you work with guys? Like, are you a sex worker? I'm just all of this stuff. And it's so interesting that people can just be so activated by a name. How some people are like, oh, you in PR, oh, you in this. When I tell them the journey of how we kind of got like the name that I have to the business that I have today, they're like, this makes so much sense. But I had someone ask about buying one of my courses, and they're like, how's this going to show up on like a bank statement? Is it going to show up professional babe? Is it going to show up Peter? And, after this, I kind of was telling people in the office, and I was like, oh my God, this is so funny. Like, they were just worried about, how it was going to show up because they're putting this through their husband's company. And one of the guys was like, have you ever thought about starting basically like a duplicate business to what you have that services more like, men and corporates and bigger business? It's you, but a bit more like, it's a bit more like scaled back, dial the personality down and maybe like charge more for your services. And it's so interesting that I was really just like adamant that I'm like, I don't want to do this. I just do not want to do this. And I think the reason I didn't want to do it is because I'm really conscious of having a business where I cannot be me. I only know how to be me. As Gary Vee once said, I am willing to deal with the ramifications of being my like 100% authentic self. It was something like that. And I truly believe that, when I started this business, I wanted to work with solo founders. I wanted to work with people that wanted, like entrepreneurial, like mentorship and development, and they wanted to grow their business. And I never saw me kind of like consulting for corporates. Like if they wanted to work with me, awesome, I'll take their cash. But it was never really like a core focus of mine. As we went through and we were talking about this, there's a guy at work, he's done his MBA at Harvard, and I am interested in his take on business. And he had just suggested it. He kept suggesting it. He's like, look, I'm not telling you how to do your business, but if you have these companies that are coming to you, it could be a good idea to start this like side business. And it was so interesting that I've taught a few events recently from my archives series, and the amount of banks that have come, the amount of bigger corporates and companies that are paying attention to me on LinkedIn. And it's kind of just been like a little neon sign after a neon sign. And, I had this moment of realization that I'm like, I am already so successful at what I do in this business that I can start another business and I can charge whatever I want. And it doesn't need to even do that well because I already have the success. And it got me thinking around the spaciousness of how, when you can get the core of your business working for you, how good this is as you want to expand, as you want to go and do other projects, because you don't really have this feeling of this needs to work and all of this pressure. And then I think because of that, it ends up working so well because you haven't tried to kind of strangle a result out of it. So I am starting this consulting arm, which is going to be like, imagine like professional babe, but corporate professional babe. I feel good about that. I'm kind of seeing this as like a little outlet. If you know me, you know that I love to kind of like make up little scenarios and act and basically be ridiculous. And I get to kind of like let one of my little personalities unleash in this business. And I feel good about that. It doesn't feel like me trying to like minimize who I am and what I do and hide parts of that. But, it is me remembering that I am a business. Sometimes you have to make business decisions that serve the vision of the business, and how, if I get a big client in this that's wanting to pay me $100,000, what this could mean for this business right now. Like I could have a production team, we could do more content, and how I'm like, I'm happy to kind of do this if it's going to help this business. Another thing that I'm doing is really staying consistent with the current content workflow. So currently we've got Monday Mindset, we've got a Thursday, Friday podcast episode. So we've got a shorter one earlier in the week. We've got a slightly longer one. I'm doing my free events. We've got email, usual social media stuff. And what I've told myself is that I don't actually need to do more, But what I have desired to do for a while is to really elevate how things look within the business. Something that I love is to look at content that feels like it has been beautifully produced, that it feels really cinematic. There is a company, I think it's like Alexis Batar, and they did this series on Instagram. And it was just so beautifully shot and produced. I love Violette FR and her old YouTube channel and how the videos looked. And I've been so heavily inspired by this. And it's interesting that I feel at times like a block that I've had is I can't do this because I don't have a production team. I felt really blocked because the amount of my competitors that have their husbands working in their business. And I'm like, I am the husband, like me and my 15 different personalities. But I've told myself that I'm not going to let a man or other people stop the success that is mine. And maybe I have to just find a way to make this work with the resources that I have. And it's not about taking this big leap from where I am to this incredible production value, but it's about just making these little shifts. If you listen to the podcast version of this, there is a chance that you haven't really noticed too much of a change from when we started. But if you are watching this on YouTube, you will see that I've gone from shooting this in my bed to, recording on Zoom where the video is not that fantastic to how now we've got better video. Today we've got nice lighting. The sets have improved and how I've slowly just changed the production quality. And I've been doing this all myself. And it's interesting that quite often we think, let me outsource this, let me bring someone in. But something that has really worked with me in my business super well is when I kind of learn how things have to happen in my business and I can upskill myself so I can do them myself. And it's so interesting because I look at this and I was like, imagine if I had to have a whole production team, how my creative vision and my creativity would have to then be on a schedule. And I don't want to get to a point in my business where I feel this big creative burst and all this stuff that comes out of me and it needs to be said, and how I can't do shit because my videographer is like, hey, baby girl, we can do this Wednesday, but I can't do it today. I don't want to do that. I don't want to kind of be like, hold on, let's press pause. Let's wait for that to come out till Wednesday. I don't want to do that. So it has served me really, really well to learn how to do this and make these little incremental upgrades. So, as I said, I didn't have any intentions of doing a podcast when I'm in here, but I'm looking at how this all looks and how it looks pretty damn good and how this has come from me making these little incremental shifts. So that's another thing that I'm doing. I am also going to be going more big and more bold. I have had in the past a metric that I've aimed for where I've aimed to do one bold and big thing a day. And I think I'm going to bring that back. So when I was doing a workshop for the incredible Sophia Amoruso, this came from me just pitching to her and being okay with being told no. And the most brilliant thing happened. She basically said yes. It got me feeling that I need to, if I'm getting continual yeses and if I'm kind of sitting and waiting back for opportunities, I need to be a lot more bold with how I'm showing up. And what confirmed this was my clients, the amount of times that they will send me some reel or something of some super famous person. And they'll be like, you say this all the time. And I'm like, I fucking do say this all the time. And how, a lot of the people that people look up to in business, I'm like, put me in a fucking seat at the table with them. I'll hold my own. It got me thinking that the best thing for me to do in my business, if I am here to truly show up and help and serve people, I can't do that with a limited audience. Yes, I help people now, but for the impact that I want to have, I need a bigger stage and I need a bigger audience. And how, I think that it's okay if you are like, I'm happy with my results, but I know that I can do more. It's like, okay, cool. What would it look like to go out and do more? So for me, it is really getting clear on the tables that I wish to sit at and asking myself, what moves can I do to put myself there? Do I need to go and do different networking events? Do I need to slide into DMs? What is that process going to look like? And having something where maybe it's not an action a day, but I want to look at my month and see that I have made some really big moves in the direction that I want to head. Because something that we need to remember is that, our business is not going to last forever. We are not going to be doing this forever. our entrepreneurial timeline is happening right now, and we will get to a point where the business that we have does not exist anymore because we will graduate to doing something different. We will retire, whatever happens, happens. Because of that, we need to remember that we don't have all of the time in the world to make things that we want happen. We have to make this happen now. And I think sometimes, myself included, it's easy to kind of feel a bit like passive with our own potential and feel like, oh my God, this just feels like it's taking forever. And, I think when it comes to business and entrepreneurship, I hate to say this, but there is sometimes an element of luck. There is sometimes an element of right place and right time. I have never been that person so far where that has just happened to me, where I've just bumped into someone or I've done one thing and it's just made me go super viral. It's unfortunately never happened. And, I think in a way it's good because it's not like I'm ever on here and I'm like, you just need to do one viral reel and everything will work out. Everything that you see has been from continual, making decisions, hard work, showing up, backing myself, being disciplined, all of that shit. And I think sometimes it's easy where you can get like a bit like, oh, is this worth it? 100% it is worth it. What I want to say as well, and off the back of that and something I'm going to commit to, is it's so interesting the ROI of making investments and how sometimes we will look at spending money on software that could work out to be $1,000 in a year or a couple $100 in a year, and we will justify spending it and then we don't really use it. That how we will overlook the small things like taking ourselves away on a business staycation. Now, I am obviously not your accountant, so, check with them before you start billing things to your business. But, I booked this staycation. I booked like a kind of like a mid room. I didn't get the cheapest room because I wanted the space, but I'm like, let me get a good room. I booked for 2 nights. It included breakfast. I got like a sexy little afternoon drink, and I think it cost me $450. Now, what's really interesting is it's like, okay, cool. The space that I've had from doing this, and something where I can actually look forward to this, because I think so much in business, especially if you are in a period of growth and grind, is that it's easy for us to kind of get really stuck in that. And what I do think we need to do is kind of celebrate ourselves, even if we're not getting the results. It's like we celebrate the action, not the reward, because the reward so much it relies so much on other people making decisions, right? Decisions on like them working with us, whatever it is, where, the only thing that you ever can control is how you show up in business, what you do in business, who you are in business, and how I told myself that I want to do this quarterly and how now I have something really beautiful to look forward to. And the cool thing is, I feel like that when I do this again, it's like, oh, okay, cool. What would it look like to do this every 2 months? What would it look like to do this every month? Like, how fun would that be? That I could book like a little monthly staycation. I can do my little set again and batch record my Monday Mindset podcast episodes. I have some space away from my beautiful clients. No offense, like I love you, but and I will recommend this as well. It's like so much when we are in our business, we are focusing on everyone else except ourselves, and how I had this space to really think about myself and my business. And I remember interviewing Tresna from Kin North, and she has got a restaurant. It's called Gemini Melbourne, and they are in Coburg. I remember interviewing her, and she said that she used to take herself away for a little quarterly retreat. She would work on her business, she would create goals, and I really loved that. And I remember when I heard that, I was not in a situation to do this because I had my membership at the time. It was very low cost. Like people, depending on when they were starting, they were paying like $59 to $99 a month compared to now what I charge. And I didn't really have a whole lot of excess to go and do things like that. I don't believe that you should just like go and do something and the money will come back, because that doesn't always happen. But it was nice to have a nice little surplus in the business to then go and do this. So that's another thing that I am committing to. I'm also committing to do a rebrand and an upgrade. Now, when I say rebrand, I don't mean that we're kind of changing like the messaging with Professional Babe, but when I look at the pictures on my website, although they are beautiful, I feel like I'm already that person. I have integrated her. Something that I love to do is to do photo shoots for my business, thinking about who I'm going to be, and almost having that as like, I want to create my own vision board of myself, of who I'm actually growing into as an entrepreneur. My hair's like darker now. It's a bit sassier. Like there is a bit more, I think, sophistication, Randomly though, the place where I did my branding shoot is where I am right now. It's where when I was trying to buy a house, I ended up moving into, but I'm ready to call in that new version of me. And what it's about discovering who I am going to be, creating the mood boards, but it's also ensuring that I'm upgrading parts of my life. I don't love the idea of going and getting a stylist to style me for my shoot. I want to actually have all the clothes in my wardrobe. So it's like when it comes to shoot day, I open the door and I'm like, cool, let me pick this, let me pick this, let me pick this. And it's shit that I'm already wearing. It's who I really already am. For this reason, it's why I do my hair and my makeup for my shoot, because it's like, I don't want my photo shoot to be like a once off. I want this to be who I'm going to be. So I'm doing a big upgrade of that. I've got my team in mind of who I'm going to use, what this is going to look like. And now it's just about making these decisions. And what I want to do is to make Professional Babe even more editorial. I want it to stand out within my industry compared to like who my competitors are. I don't want fluoro, that works for them. I don't want people to look at what I'm doing and they're like, oh, she must be a business coach. She must be a business consultant. I want to really be in my own lane, and I want to be so much in my own lane that people see what I'm doing and they can't even compare me to anyone else because they're like, this is so distinctly Professional Babe. And I think that this is going to do like incredible things for my business as well. Now, another thing that I'm working on is, I wrote down at the start of the year that I wanted to have a $620,000 year. Everyone's like, that's such a weird number. And I'm like, I know, but it just kind of came to mind. It was so funny that then January happened. It was a $65,000 month. And I'm like, holy shit. Okay, maybe I need to think bigger if we're already doing this. I took my clients through a task this week, and I actually want to record a podcast episode on this. So if you're like, this sounds really familiar to something we've spoken about, that's probably why. I'm not sure when I'm going to release these episodes, but it was a task that I took my clients through based on something that I saw on Instagram and I can't remember who shared it, but it was this woman. And she was like, our coach told us to write down our goal and then to double it and then double it again and then double it again, and how so many people couldn't write it down on paper. And I loved this task because it's interesting that we can come up with a goal in business that feels like it's so big for us. But it's interesting how we'll feel like that we don't have a ceiling on what we do. But it's like if I were to tell you to quadruple your goal, it's really interesting the stuff that comes up with that. And, what I said on the call is, it's interesting when you tell people that you want to make a big business, you want more, they think that you're not happy and you're being greedy. But I'm like, no one knows. You could decide that you're going to donate 100% of the profits. Like, it's your business. Do whatever the fuck you want. But it was interesting that I was like, why the fuck am I still thinking small? I'm aware how ridiculous this sounds. $620,000 is not a small amount of money. But it's interesting when I look at people that have this huge business. They are the Alex Hormozis. And I'm like, I could hold my own at a table with him. Like, I know Alex would walk away being like, I love your perspective on this. And I'm like, why the fuck am I still minimizing how much I could make and how big I could grow? Like, I've got offers in my business where we could have a multi-million-dollar year. Like that feels so achievable. So I am committing to just going big and thinking big, and not even thinking big. It's just like remembering that I'm already big and how the multi-million-dollar business that I want to have already exists by all of the decisions that I have made. Decisions like coming away for this weekend, decisions like having a price increase, decisions like, holding like a really high standard to things. I've had some people say, can we do like an over 12-month payment plan on Give Good Email? I'm like, absolutely not. And how it's so interesting that I've committed to having a really high standard in my business. There's no point having money of today if you are kind of like fucking up your future self. So I can look at everything that's kind of happening in my business and how it's like I have all of these elements working. The best way I can explain this is it's like I have put together all of the perfect pieces in my wardrobe. And now it's just about styling them and making them work together. And that feels really, really good. And maybe this is a reminder for you as well is, if you are on that next stage of growth, and of course you will be, you listen to this podcast, which is all about like business growth, entrepreneurial growth. It's like, what do you have within your business wardrobe that already is something that future you has? Like, it's already something that is going to make future you happen. And it could be something that you've got a really banging offer where you are like, this is incredible. The price is incredible. This is scalable. I know that $1 million me, multi-million dollar me is going to have this. Maybe it's your website. Maybe it's your team, whatever it is. Just like take stock and acknowledge that. Because the amount of times that we will look at the results or the lack of results in our business and we're like, why the fuck is this taking so long? And it's like we can just blanketly, is that even a word? It's like we can just like start to hate things in our business, forgetting that we actually have so much working for us. The only thing that we currently don't have is the results. But if we have all of these elements that are stacked up and we just need to maybe stay consistent or maybe do a little bit more, whatever it is, it's like we need to still acknowledge that instead of feeling like that we're in this perpetual cycle of hating our fucking business and wanting to burn it down, because holy fuck, that is exhausting. I am so sick of seeing that shit. So if that's you, work with me. Another thing that I am doing is I am getting even more proactive with the sales in my business. As you know, I love email. I love my wonderful little funnels that I have set up. But I do think because now everyone is getting a lot more automation savvy, I don't want a potential sale to be kind of sitting there and it could be pushed further along by me having a bit of a timely conversation. So what I'm going to be doing more now is using my email marketing data a lot more proactively, contacting people up and having some spaciousness within my week where I actually can have more calls. I have in the past had a strange relationship with discovery calls. I haven't really liked them. And what I'm going to do now is kind of change how this looks and have this as something where it's like, what would it look like to just have some open dialogue with someone? Instead of having a discovery call, what would it look like to just send someone a voice note, send them an email, and do a little bit more proactive work within that way? So I'm going to be doing my proactive sales. And another thing that I'm going to be doing is I am going to be, and I've already started now, I'm going to be going back on YouTube. So you may be watching this on YouTube. Hi, hello, subscribe, leave a comment, obsessed with you. But I had my old Professional Babe YouTube channel. And it has all of my old like beauty and makeup and lifestyle videos. And I was like, let me start to revitalize this. I've been doing stuff with shorts. We've got the video podcast. And I really love this as a platform. I love it more than Instagram. My Instagram reach has just started to like, I don't want to say tank, but it's interesting that the people that I follow on there, they have regularly been talking how they are just fed up with Instagram. And I don't want to put all my eggs in that little IG basket. So what I'm doing is kind of like diversifying my lead generation and my visibility strategy. So I did lie to you all in the start of this year when I was like, how to make $1 million without ad spend. And I've been doing some ad spend. I have been fucking around with some Facebook ads, which they've been going okay. I need to kind of learn a little bit more if I decide I want to outsource that or if I truly like this as something within my business. But I love YouTube. And I think that this is going to be something I'm going to continue with. So when we actually look at everything that I said to you among my goals process and like what I'm doing for this next 12 months, it's so funny how I'm like, this was not even the purpose of this call and this is what it's turned into, is, the goal that I'm working towards is what would it look like to be $1 million Peter? What would it look like to have $1 million business and still have a really sexy life? So it is not about earning $1 million and then being like, I was so burned out. It's about earning $1 million and having a really beautiful life in the process. So, going out to a cafe once a day for my cup of coffee, feeling like that I can clock off at a certain time, bringing Pilates back into my life. It looks like getting even more clear on my boundaries and standards of, how I show up, how I talk about things and my content, the clients that I work with. So that's really the goal part. When I look at my offerings, it looks like looking at consulting, give good email, and business bang. I do have my other little things, but it's not going to be a core focus because these are the things that have the most transformation. I am starting my other business, so we do have the other consulting services in that. When I look at this with my lead generation and visibility, I have got Instagram, I've got YouTube, I have got TikTok, and I'm even going to say like people as part of a referral strategy. Maybe you came to me because someone referred my podcast, they shouted me out. People and having these relationships with people has worked so well in business at being discovered. So if you ever share my stuff, thank you. I am so grateful for you. And then when I look at sales, it's being more proactive And of course, using email, having conversations as well. So I am going to be doing, I think tomorrow, I'm going to be mapping out my own goals process. If you haven't already, I did do a workshop on this called How to Have a Hot Business. There is a condensed version of the Business Bang business plan template that you can download. But if this is something that you want to work on, if you are like, no, I have a really big goal, I want to make sure that I'm not minimizing myself, can you help me? Of course I can help you. I would love to help you. And this is, of course, something that we can do in Business Bang. So hot stuff. How funny was this that I was like, this episode obviously just wanted to come out of me. But hopefully you found this helpful. I love this. I love you. I love you a whole lot more than how I'm feeling right now. I don't know if I'm hungover or if I'm sleep deprived, or maybe it's both. But yesterday I had 2 little drinkies and I haven't really been drinking a lot. And then I had someone come over and visit. And if you catch my drift, and he left at like 4 o'clock this morning. So I haven't really had that much sleep. I woke up, I went downstairs. I was like, oh my God, I feel really trash. So I love you more than how I'm feeling right now. But last night, sensational. How nice is it when you are just so comfortable with someone? There is just this really nice like energy between you both. So I love you more than that. Who knows if this is going to stay in or if I'm going to cut that out. I love you more than consistency. Oh my gosh. One of my favorite French restaurants is Chez Olivier in South Yarra. And I usually will get the steak, or they have this like beautiful salmon dish. And my mom normally gets the salmon dish. And every time you get it, everything is just so perfect and consistent. My Virgo brain loves consistency. But I went there last night. I had the most spectacular meal. They'll do like complimentary bread. So I started with some bread and butter, a sexy little Diet Coke. Oh wait, no, it was Coke Zero. They added some lemon in there. That was delish. I decided not to drink because I'd already had 2 glasses of wine at the hotel. I had this like salmon dish, and it was salmon on this like, it was almost like this pumpkin puree, but it was soupy. So it was like in that, it was amazing. And then around the perimeter were almonds and cranberries and this like truffle, was like truffle oil. And then I had a beautiful side salad, which was exceptional. And then for dessert, I had chocolate fondant. So it was like one of those beautiful chocolate cakes. When you like break it open, it's like oozy in the center, and vanilla ice cream. And then I came back to my hotel room and I got a second serving of dessert, which was cuddles, which was amazing. So I love you more than that. What else do I love you more than? I love you more than like how fucking awesome my past self was. Like, look at this beautiful robe, baby pink, silk. What a fucking good move this was. Don't you love when you look at your wardrobe or you look at elements of your life and you are like, thank you, past self, for buying that. I know that you were just unsure if you wanted to spend that much money. I love that you spent the money. And let me tell you, if there's something I never regret, it's spending cash, because it always works out well. I can't remember how much I paid for this, but I just love it. I'm obsessed with it. It's made so well. I feel like a goddess. I feel hot and I feel good. And hot stuff, I've got 3 more episodes to do. So we are going to end this here. I love this. I love you. And I will see you on the next episode. Mwah.